السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
إن الحمد لله نحمده تعالى ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدًا عبد الله ورسوله أرسله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله وكفى بالله شهيدا فصلوات الله وسلامه عليه يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد. We always start off by recognizing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's monotheism, that He is worthy of worship and the only one worthy of worship. Therefore we worship Him through the 5 daily prayers, through fasting, through giving charity, through coming to Jum'ah prayer. And we always remind ourselves of the importance of being conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because when one is conscious of Allah, then he has attached him or herself, he has grabbed or she has grabbed the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, al-urwatul wuthqa, as it's described in the Quran, the firm rope, in which if someone grabs it, they are protected and they are firm. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protects them from anything that may harm them. And the stronger our grasp is of this rope, the rope of Islam, then the more we benefit from it. Today, I want to talk briefly about really an interesting topic and a very relevant topic. It's very relevant to the youth and the parents. And that is Islam in light of science and philosophy, or science and philosophy in light of Islam. And today, the parents, I'm sure they are hearing things from their youth, from their children, that may seem contradictory to Islam, and the youth are learning about things such as the theory of evolution, which we'll talk about, inshallah, towards the end of the Khutbah. What is Islam's stance when it comes to evolution? There are seemingly more and more scientific evidences that may be pointing to things contrary to the Quran. And I want to go over a few guidelines, really. But one thing must be made clear, that the standard throughout history is whenever religion becomes strong, science goes down. And if science becomes strong, religion and piety goes down, with the exception of Islamic history. And you all know this. This should be common knowledge by now, that when Iman was strong, when religious institutions were strong and much, then science was also strong. And we know the contributions of Muslim scholars to science, to modern day science, whether it be medicine, or algebra, or astronomy, or alchemy, and so on and so forth. Even the word alchemy comes from the Arabic word al-kamiyya. And a few months ago, in the summer, I visited the Griffith Observatory out in Hollywood, right? And they had an exhibition on alchemy. And they brought out very old scriptures of alchemy. And guess what language it was in? In Arabic. And if you know Arabic, you can read it. So Islam has had much effort when it comes to science. And when Islam was strong, when faith in people's hearts was strong, you saw that Muslims flourished in terms of science. And the opposite is true. When Iman went down, so did science. And look at our situation today back in the Middle East or in the Muslim countries. Faith went down, and so was science. We had to come here. A lot of the first generation Muslims here came here for the sole purpose of seeking an education. Whereas back in the classical times of Islam, Western individuals would go to Muslim universities to learn. And that was the situation. So there are a few major guidelines I'd like to point out today. These aren't all of them, but these are what I felt were the most important. How do we understand science and Islam in light of one another? Number one, the Quran is not a book of science. It's a book of spirituality. It's a book which teaches us how to come close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what it is. What is the thesis of the Quran? The thesis of the Quran is La ilaha illallah. That there's nothing worthy of worship except Allah. That is the Quran. And everything else is a branch of this thesis. So we pray 5 times a day. The acts of worship are an extension of, or our application of La ilaha illallah. Staying away from that which is forbidden. That which was made forbidden because it harms our relationship with Allah. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us to do something, made an obligation upon us, it is because that helps us, that strengthens our relationship with Allah. And so on and so forth. So what we take from this really is 2 things. Number one, don't exaggerate the role of the Quran in science. If we can move up real quickly, Jazakumullah khair. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward your efforts. The Quran, don't exaggerate the Quran's role in science. Yes, there is science in the Quran. There are verses which point to scientific facts. That only recently, over the past 50 years, we have been able to further prove the divine nature of the Quran through scientific facts of today, such as the stages of the embryo in the mother's womb, and such as the fly, for example. And you all read that small book on science in the Quran. However, most of the scientific verses, if you will, are really, they point to certain issues. That's it. They're not laws. We don't extrapolate scientific laws from the Quran, but rather the scientists of old, Muslim scientists of old, they would look at the Quran to kind of take bits and pieces of information to show us, hey, there's a point right here. Look into it, right? And the Sunnah, for example. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not create a disease except that He created a cure with it. That is a general scientific piece of information. But rather it is upon the scholar, the scientist, to further that and to build upon it. So the Quran is not a book of science. That is the first point. And the second point in this is that science is left to scientists. You don't go to a sheikh, an Islamic scholar, and ask them what are the theories of this and that. It's not his or her role. It is the role of the scientist. Okay? Because the Quran, don't exaggerate the role of the Quran in science and leave science to scientists. That's the first major point. Number two, the one who revealed the Quran is the same one who created science and its laws. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the Quran and all the divine books to the prophets. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also the one who created the universe, in it the laws of science that we study. Therefore, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says something, it will never contradict a scientific law. Because the one who revealed this and the one who created this is the same. And we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's perfection, and therefore Allah will never contradict Himself subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we do need to recognize something. That science is a tool, and a very important tool that we study and we develop. However, science cannot explain everything. Okay, there are certain things that are beyond the realm of science, such as what happens in the next life, the realities of paradise and hellfire, the realities of the day of judgment. This is beyond us. And therefore, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us something that seems contrary to science, right, know that our belief in it is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us to believe it. For example, the creation of Adam alayhi salam, right? So at the end, we're going to talk about evolution, but the creation of Adam is a miracle. It is beyond science. The birth of Isa alayhi salam, right? If anyone were to ask, if any lady were to claim that she had a miraculous child like Isa, what would our answer be? We wouldn't believe her, right? Because that goes against science. It goes against biology. But the reason we believe in Isa's alayhi salam miraculous birth is because Allah told us that's what happened. So when it comes to certain miracles that are beyond the realm of science, the reason we believe it is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us to believe it. That's it. We don't believe in miracles, anything contrary to science, unless the Quran tells us to. So when the Quran told us that Allah created Adam immediately, directly, right, and then he came down. Although today it seems to be contrary to the theories or the theory of evolution, right, we believe it because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us, and inshallah I will explain this more later on. So the second point is the one who revealed the Quran is the one who created science, and therefore they're never at ends with each other. We don't have this conflict. We're not worried about new discoveries of science, because the one who created and the one who revealed is the same, subhanahu wa ta'ala. The third one, and this is really very important, and it's very, very deep. So listen, and inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give me the tawfiq to help you realize and understand this point. In the Quran, there are verses that are unambiguous, meaning there's only one way to understand the verse. It's one-dimensional. There's only one opinion between scholars. There's no way of reinterpreting the verse. We call these verses al-thawabit. It's thabit, qat'i. It's decisive. For example, what does la ilaha illallah mean? There's only one understanding to it. We cannot change it. And you have verses that they have an element of ambiguity to it. It's not 100% decisive. There is room for difference of opinion. Okay? There are these two kinds of categories in the Quran. So when it comes to an unambiguous verse, a verse that is decisive, that's one-dimensional, we believe it regardless of what anything else says. And if there is a law, right, an unambiguous verse and a scientific law, as we said before, these will never contradict. They will never contradict. What happens when we have an unambiguous verse with a theory of science that seem to be contrary or contradictory to one another? Since the verse is unambiguous and we are commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to believe in it, we take that over the theory. Because the theory can be disproved. It's still not a law. It hasn't reached that level of 100%. Okay? Again, if the verse is unambiguous and the science is a theory, it hasn't reached the level of law, we will take the unambiguous verse if it contradicts scientific theory. Because this is 100% and that is not 100%. Okay? That's the second level. The third level, what if the Quranic verse is ambiguous, meaning there is room for interpretation, there is room for a different opinion, and it contradicts the law of science, a law, 100%. What do we take? We take the law of science over the unambiguous verse. We say the scholars who interpreted the verse this way, which is contrary to a scientific law, they were wrong in their interpretation. There's another opinion out there that's more accurate. I hope this makes sense until now. And if it doesn't make sense, please come to me after. This is very important. And for the parents especially. If you can understand this verse, it'll make things a lot easier when you discuss and converse with your children about certain scientific facts and theories and whatnot that is out there. Okay? So that's the third scenario. The fourth scenario is the verse is ambiguous. The verse is ambiguous. There is room for interpretation, and the science is a theory, meaning this isn't 100% and that isn't 100%. This is very wide. You have a lot of leeway, you have a lot of room to work here. We won't give either one precedence over the other. Okay? So that's the different scenarios when it comes to science and Islam. If the Islamic verse is 100%, we take that over the law. But if the science is 100%, then they will never contradict. Okay? If one is 100%, the other isn't, we take the 100% over the one that's not. And if both are under 100%, then there's room for debate, there's room for discussion, there's room for building and progressing. Number 4, Islam promotes knowledge and doesn't shy away from a debate. And this is really important for the youth to understand. There is this false conception that Muslim scholars have always shunned sciences. And very prominent scholars today, really they put a lot of blame on Imam al-Ghazali and Ibn Taymiyyah. These two figures specifically. And the reason is that these two figures really, they demolished, they really put to end all the various Greek philosophies which entered Islam. So the Qadaris, not the Qadianis, the Qadaris, the Jabris, the Jahmis, these are all groups of philosophy. The Mu'tazilas, for example, that's one of the most popular ones. Right? Ibn Taymiyyah and Imam al-Ghazali, their works really put those philosophies on the side. They absolutely demolished them. So some of the reformist Muslims today really blame them. They have a lot of criticism towards them, and they say that they caused the ummah, the Muslims, to just obey. Their philosophy, just obey, don't ask. Right? Imam Ghazali taught, obey Allah, and that's it. Don't even think about it. Ibn Taymiyyah said, obey Allah, and don't even think about it. That's not the case. Both Imam Ibn Taymiyyah and Imam al-Ghazali have hundreds, literally, I'm not exaggerating, hundreds of volumes debating these philosophies. They didn't reach their conclusions just by saying, you know what, this is easier and that's it. No, they debated a lot. And that's how they came to their conclusion. And the fact that the Muslims as a whole accepted these two methodologies, these two philosophies, shows that they were just far superior to the previous ones. So Islam never shies away from knowledge, nor does it shy away from debate. Islam has always been capable, and there have always been scholars who met the challenges of those who try and contradict what's in the Quran or in the Sunnah. So for the youth, or the parents, for the youth and parents, if something that seems contrary to the Quran is presented to your children or through your textbooks, it's okay. Look at it and understand what Islam says. Sometimes they're not at odds with one another. Sometimes there's a way of understanding both in light of each other. And sometimes we need to debate and say, you know what, this is wrong. And finally, verses which contradict science. And I kind of shed light on this before, I'll say it again. What we call miracles, such as the Prophet ﷺ's trip in Isra and Mi'raj. He went and woke up from Mecca. He traveled to Jerusalem, which back then was a month journey. He went up to the seventh heaven, spoke with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, came down, back to Jerusalem, went back to Mecca, and his bed was still warm. Right? SubhanAllah. This is a miracle. Again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, اقتربت الساعة وانشق القمر. The moon was split. And we all know the story of when the Prophet split the moon by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Well, there are no cracks, there are no nothing. Again, this defies laws of science, or at least the laws which they had access to back then. A third example is the birth of Isa alayhi salam, and so on and so forth. These are miracles. Again, we believe them because Allah told us to believe them. If someone were to come and say the moon was split, or someone split the moon, right, we would say we don't believe you, unless you have some sort of verse in the Quran that does. So we believe that the Prophet ﷺ split the moon and he went on this journey of Isra and Mi'raj because the Quran told us. That's it. If the Quran didn't tell us, then we wouldn't have to believe it. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه أما بعد. Now let's take what we learned in the first khutbah and apply it to the theory of evolution. And this is really a big problem that many Muslims are facing today, because they feel that it is contrary to the Quran. First of all, animals and humans. Let's separate these two categories. The Quran does not mention anything about the creation of animals, other than the fact that it was created with water. Its source of life is water. However, animals and evolution, the Quran is silent about. Therefore, based on what we said before, we leave it to scientists to determine. Are animals a product of evolution, or were animals created individually? The Quran is silent about it. Therefore, scientists are free to say what they say. As for Adam alayhi salam, we have a clear verse in the Quran, an unambiguous verse in the Quran, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Adam with his two hands. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Adam himself directly, contrary to every other creation. So animals were created indirectly by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whereas Adam directly with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's hands. Right? So this is where the problem is. Today they say that humans are a product of evolution from monkeys. Right? The Quran says Adam alayhi salam was created directly. Now we have a problem. The Quran is unambiguous, but evolution is still a theory. Right? So those who want to debate the theory of evolution, say no, that theory is incorrect, you have that path. But let's just assume that later on it becomes a law. Because today most scientists have accepted the theory of evolution. Let's just go with that. Well, we can't interpret each in light of the other. Now, if animals are allowed to, and Islamically we can believe that they are a product of evolution, we can believe that monkeys were evolving. And if you will, imagine a domino, a row of dominoes, right? And the start of the Big Bang, for example, kind of hit that first domino, and it's been going down ever since. Now imagine somewhere in that row, one domino is missing. One domino is missing. Okay? This path is a path of the evolution of monkeys. Monkeys are now more and more becoming like human figures. But you have that missing domino right there. Once it was time to hit that missing domino, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down Adam alayhi salam. And it continued from there. That is one explanation. Yes, monkeys were evolving, but Adam alayhi salam was just a continuation of that, who was created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sent down at the exact perfect time. That is a explanation. Again, this is Islamic theory trying to combine or trying to understand evolution in light of the Quran, in light of this verse that is unambiguous. This is a way. There are ways of explaining science and Islam, right? But it takes effort in actually studying both and understanding and coming up with a conclusion. So we believe Adam alayhi salam was created by Allah. He is not a product of evolution simply because Allah told us. If Allah did not mention anything in the Quran about the creation of Adam, then we would say what we said about animals. Evolution or not, that's up to scientists. But we do have a verse, that verse is unambiguous, it's 100%. There is no way of reinterpreting it or understanding it in a different way. Therefore we believe it because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us. Now how do we prove this scientifically? Again, miracles are beyond the realm of science. There is no way, at least now, of proving that Adam alayhi salam is not a product of evolution. We believe it because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us. And I hope this gives a little bit of framework, something that you can use to understand and help converse with your youth. And for the college students here today and the high school students, if you want any research on this, if you want to talk to me, I am more than happy to do that. But again, if you see something you feel is un-Islamic in your books of science, there are ways of dealing with it. And those ways aren't just ignore and believe in Allah. No, there are scientific ways, there are academic ways of explaining and researching these two fields. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase our knowledge. We have a few announcements. Make dua for Miss Manadi and Sister Hawa Zakaria and Brother Mas'ud Jamal, who all passed away. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive them and overlook their sins. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make their graves a paradise and protect them from the hellfire. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant their families patience in their hardship and to give them the tawfiq to continue in ways to provide these deceased individuals with good deeds, because good deeds we can gift good deeds to those who are deceased. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always to grant us the ability to do that and to benefit our loved ones even after they pass away. Make dua for Marwan Busmati, who is in ICU. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant him a speedy recovery and to grant his family patience. OCIF's annual blood drives on Sunday, January 7th. Please sign up at redcross.org using the code OCIF. We only have 7 volunteers right now. We need 29 more. So remember the verse that whoever saves a life, it's as if they saved all of mankind. So if your blood is donated to someone and it saves their life, then know that there's a lot of reward with that. And you can imagine on the Day of Judgment how happy you will be to hear that your blood actually saved someone's life and you have this mountain of good deeds waiting for you that you didn't even know about, subhanAllah. Number 2, our My OC family hiking trip is coming up on Saturday, January 6th at 7 a.m. at Ronald Casper's Wilderness Park. Friday Quran class field trip tonight is canceled due to insufficient number of children registered, and there will be no classes tonight. That is for the Quran classes. My OC, the youth group, will meet tonight, inshallah, at 6 p.m. A new Aqidah class for sisters in Arabic will be on Wednesday at 10:30 a.m. And Access California Services is having a table, or has a table outside. Please visit the table and get to know more about their services. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us and all the believing Muslims. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help the Muslims in their strife and their struggles of today. Allahumma ighfir lil muslimin wal muslimat wal mu'minin wal mu'minat al ahya'i minhum wal amwat innaka sami'un qareebun mujibud da'awat ya rabbil alamin. Allahumma aslih lana dinana alladhi huwa 'ismatu amrina wa aslih lana dunyana allati fiha ma'ashuna wa aslih lana akhiratana allati ilayha ma'aduna waj'al al hayata ziyadatan lana fi kulli khair waj'al al mawta rahatan lana min kulli shar wa aqim as-salat.